Hello there everyone, welcome to another D&D Beyond tutorial video. So today we are not doing another one of the year videos. I'll put an update of that at the end of the video. For now we are going to answer some questions that the community has put forward and asked, and we're going to briefly cover the Heroes of Krynn UA. So firstly, to the community questions, want to get that out of the way. So there have been a few questions that have been asked and a few comments. I am aware some of our earlier videos had some noise issues. I'm probably going to have to re-record them at some point, so I'm going to have to try it. The main issue there is trying to find the time to re-record all those old videos. What I am able to do, however, is to try and help with some of the other stuff more immediately. So one of the questions that was asked was, how do I add options for selecting ability scores to a subrace? So here we are. So if I go backwards a bit from this one, as you can see, we're in a copy of Drow, so we are in a subrace, but doing it for a race and a subrace is exactly the same option. So we go over to here, modifiers, we can add a modifier, we go to bonus, and what you can do is, if you want to go old school, where you are going, I want to give, say, a +1 or a +2 bonus to a static skill, you pick whatever the ability score is, score, and then add a fixed number, 1 or 2. You can choose. Now, all the options in the choose sections are options that are currently available. So, for example, Constitution, Intelligence, Dexterity. There are a couple that are 3. There are certain combinations that won't be there. That is purely because there hasn't been a need for them yet. However, if you just want to give someone the ability to just pick any ability score, just go choose an ability score. That will let the player then pick on their character sheet during creation what the ability score is, and this number here, fixed value, is just whatever that bonus will be, 1 or 2. So hopefully that helps with that question. The next question we were asked was about the Radiant Soul. So we're briefly just going to take a look at Radiant Soul. So Radiant Soul was with Astral Elf, and it was basically you could pick Charisma, Wisdom, Intelligence, and it was if you succeed on a death save, you gain hit points equal to your proficiency bonus plus that thing. So So one of the key things you'll notice, because obviously we see here, you can't use this till a long rest. Oh, we'll put it in actions. No, we do not put it in actions. We put it in options. And we put here character levels where options know 1. So the sheet knows we are going to pick one option at level 1. I'm just going to go into one of them. So here, Charisma, you want to make sure that you change, because obviously it's very easy to type it, snip code out once, you copy and paste it. Be sure with each option that you change this bit here, the modifier cat to modifier int to modifier wiz based on the one you're using. State it here, and then under actions, this isn't necessary because of the nature of the ability, but I just do it just for sake. Again, copy the snippet code in here, make sure you change it correctly, and then in the description it's the long form. So if we now go to a character, I'm going to go Radiant Soul. As you can see, I have the 3 options. Go to features and traits and pick racial. Here you see Charisma. When you succeed on a death save, you can regain a number of hit points equal to 4. Now this is a bit odd. Why did it? That might be why. Special. Be sure to put special, because if I've got to wait for it to cache again, but when I cache and reload the sheet, that'll hopefully go action and a number of charges. That was my fault. That was a small error on my part. Be sure to put special on your action. And then if I go to actions and I go other, Let's reload the sheet, because actually it won't appear in actions, because technically it doesn't have an action assigned to it. Yeah, no, it isn't going to appear at the moment because I made that mistake. Obviously, if you pass a death save, it won't automatically do that, because the homebrew system doesn't allow you to get that kind of in-depth into the system. But hopefully it should appear, hopefully it will help. I know the individual was not able to see two of the options. The only other thing I would suggest is make sure this is clear, make sure potentially this is clear, just because if these are clear, it might be potentially that you filled in these and you set the required character level to something higher than 1, and so they're not seeing it. Also make sure it is granted, it is not ticked for any of them, otherwise it will go, oh yeah, you automatically have this option. Right, so with that, there was another question about backgrounds, but we'll get onto that while we're covering backgrounds for the Knights of Solamnia. Yes, the other question we've been asked is people going, hi, I've made homebrew, I've done all this amazing stuff, but it isn't appearing as an option on my character. Make sure if we go to manage character levels, the most important thing is go to the home section here, make sure homebrew content is switched on. If homebrew content is not switched on, you won't be able to see it. The only other thing I can think of is you have a homebrew collection and homebrew creations. You can, I believe it's in, so we actually click on the boon, look at it here, you can remove it from your collection. Now, removing from your collection is a valid thing to do if, for example, you don't want your, if you're a DM, you've made something, you don't want the players to see it. The problem is, if you remove it from your collection, you also can't use it. So just be mindful of that. Just in case you've accidentally hit this button, that might be a reason why. At least that's my understanding of the collections versus creations. Right, so we're going to now jump into the UA. I have not gone through and made all of these. We are not going to go through and tell you how to make all of these. The main reason for that is, for example, the Kender would be me repeating a lot of stuff. There is nothing really here that is unusual enough to warrant a special section. What I am going to do is I'm briefly going to cover the Lunar section, the Lunar subclass, and I'm going to cover one of the backgrounds and feats. Mainly not covering all of it, I'm just going to cover areas that might be a pressure point, something that you haven't come across and don't really know how to deal with. Obviously, for the Lunar magic, I just copied the, I used the Divine Soul Sorcerer as a base. Doesn't really matter for this. The key thing I want to show you is how to do the Lunar magic class feature. So Lunar magic, as you can see, we've got the Lunar spells. For those who are not used to the UA, basically, you will learn, you get to pick which of the 3 phases you are in when you finish a long rest. While you are in that phase, you learn these spells at set levels. They do not count against your number of sorcerer spells, but you do still need to use spell slots. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to go past the text telling you what to do, and the main thing we're going to look at is here, and this is again class feature options. So here we have full moon, and you can basically copy this procedure for the other 2. So include any text you want, but the main thing is we go down to here with spells. Now, currently I've already got 2 set up. I'm going to show you how to add another spell. So the next spell is Death Ward. So we have Death Ward, ability score Charisma, because we are a sorcerer. We're going to ignore all of this because we're not really changing anything. It does consume a spell slot, does not count against spells known, it is always prepared, and most importantly, it is available at level 5. And that's that. And you just repeat this process for each of the spells, create the next option, which will be New Moon, do the same again, create an option for Crescent Moon, do the same again. The other thing is you can cast each spell once without expending a spell slot. Once you do it this way, you can't do it for a long rest. So how we would then do that is we're going to do Fairy Fire. Yes, you will have to add a second copy of each of these spells to get this to happen. So, again, Sorcerer. It does not consume a spell slot, does not count as spell known, is always prepared, available at character level 1. Remember to do this because technically it's unlocked through the same procedure. You get 1 use per long rest. And that's that. And you just repeat the process again and again and again. Now, here is a later skill. This is we're looking at Lunar Boons. So, again, you would use an option. You would put Abjuration, Conjuration here in the description. The key thing is you can set a prerequisite, and it will look at all the previous options you have chosen. So here, we can pick Full Moon. Ignore the Divine Magic, but you can pick Full Moon, which will link to the Full Moon from the Lunar Magic section. There are 2 ways I would say that you can create this subclass. The first is each of these options that give you a tie to one of the phases of the moon, you make an option, and whenever they complete a long rest, they go into the character builder again and they change you to the options to the appropriate moon they want. A second option, which I advise less, but it is an option if you don't want to make them change their options every time, is you create 3 subclasses. You create Lunar Moon in brackets Full Moon, Lunar Moon in brackets New Moon, Lunar Magic, sorry, in brackets Crescent Moon. And you just preset it. If they've gone Crescent Moon, you just give them all the Crescent Moon options and so forth. And then when they go into the character builder, they can change the subclass instead of the options for each of the things. The disadvantage of that, however, is see here, we've got Sorcerer. If you go here to subclasses, now I've got lots of homebrew subclasses for Sorcerer. You can only pick between the official ones. Whenever you make a subclass or a class, whenever you make a subclass, you can only pick official subclasses to use as templates. So you'd have to make each one by scratch you'd have to make the subclass 3 times by scratch. Now, that choice is yours. Now, there is one other thing, which is over here. Moonfire. Now, this is slightly different, because this takes the Sacred Flame. And one thing I am going to point out here is, obviously, we would just add it. It would not count against the number of sorcerer cantrips you know. It is always prepared. No, it doesn't consume a spell slot because it's a cantrip. The one thing I would say is there is no way, as you can see, to edit the fact it can hit 2 targets. We can edit the spell range. We can edit the cast time. We could potentially add it here to additional description. But at the end of the day, I would just add it to the text of the class feature and hope the person remembers. So that's the Sorcerer subclass. I know that doesn't go into all the details you may want, but a lot of it it's very common sense, especially based off what you've already seen in our previous tutorials. So then we get to backgrounds. Someone gave us a question of, hi, I've entered some skills into background, why are they not appearing? Well, I want to just briefly raise this with you now. So when you create a class, obviously, here you have introduction, skill proficiency, description. Very importantly, if you put skills in here, they will not be added to the sheet, because this is only the description. You need to make sure you've filled in the skill proficiency description and the skill proficiency section down here. Skill proficiencies. And then because you don't want them to choose, you just put in a single skill here. If you put in multiple skills, they will get a choice between those options. So if you just want to give them 2 skills, just put 1 in each box. But yes, that might be where the issue has come up, is you've either put a skill in the description and then not in here, meaning if they look at the background, they can go, oh, it's in there. It doesn't mechanically appear, or you've put it in here, which means it'll appear on the sheet, but when you actually look at the background, it's like, oh, there is no skills attached. So just make sure fill them both in. Here, as you can see here, we've got playing cards set. We've done something really weird here. We've descriptor boxes. Ooh, that's a mistake there. With the brackets, make sure we always get the brackets the right way around. If, for example, you can also do this with monsters, if you want to, for an encounter or anything, label monsters a specific way. When you put in an item type or a monster type or something like that, here you put the actual item name so that's in the system. So for example, a set of common clothes, actually called cloves, comma, common. You then put in this little graphical symbol here, a semicolon, and then after the semicolon you actually write this bit, a set common clothes. And then when if someone wants to look at your background, what they would see is a set of common clothes, and if they hovered over it, it would give them the item common, clothes common. Just want to explain that a bit quickly. Squire Solemnia feat. There is no way to attach a feat currently to a background. I imagine this will change. But in the meantime, what you can do if we find our good old character test. Say, for example, this character had the background Squire Solemnia. What you could do is you could go down to Manage Feats, and you can just give a feat. There is an option in the character builder to say that, that there's an option to ignore prerequisites. I believe, I could be wrong, I believe somewhere there might be an option to allow you to manually add feats. If it isn't an option, it's just a thing anyone can do. Let's have a look. Customize your origin. Yeah, so you can set here, use prerequisites, you can choose to ignore them. Yeah, you can just add feats, because they acknowledge the fact that DMs may give you feats at random moments. So if you take that background, just say to them, look up Squire Solemnia, click add, and it will be added to their sheet. Squire Solemnia. It is a feat. It has prerequisites. I'm not going to go into what the feat is. I just want to make this, because we've already covered how feats work. Obviously, a bunch of these have prerequisites. There is a problem. Squire Solemnia generally requires that you have squireship in the Knights of Solemnia. You can add that to the description. That's fine. If you go to prerequisite types, there is no prerequisite for having a feat. There is no prerequisite for having a background. So you can type in whatever the prerequisite is here in the description. And then because there isn't a mechanical one, I would just click save. Oh, well, that's broken. I would highly just advise, yeah, because it wants this. There is no way to currently make that work, so you will have to trust that your players understand the system and do it themselves, or if you're doing it for your own sheet, that you understand the system and you do it yourself. It isn't perfect, it isn't great. What you tend to find is when things go to official publication, stuff will change in the Homebrew editor. So you may find when this feat, if this feat gets published as it is, with links to backgrounds and with feats using other feats as prerequisites, that they will be added to the options you can choose. On that note, that's pretty much it. There's nothing else that really screams a requirement for further discussion, because everything else is pretty makes sense based off what we've discussed in previous tutorials. The only other thing I want to make mention of is, obviously, for a while now we've been doing year videos where it's, here's the UA that came out this year, is there anything interesting? About where we got to is where they started really ramping up most things that NTUA gets published, or is just so like everything else that there isn't really anything new to explain how the system works. So from now on, this series will basically be, if community members have comments, have questions, apologies. If you have questions, we will release new videos answering those questions. If new UA comes out, we'll briefly go through, like we've done here with the Heroes of Krynn, where we don't go into every aspect, because we already have a tutorial series for that. But where there's something that we kind of sit there and we go, okay, this may cause some confusion, might not be entirely clear how to do this, we'll break it down, we'll try and describe it. If people have more questions based on specific bits, like I'm trying to get this aspect to work, how do I get that to work in this UA, put it in the comments. I will try and answer. I'll either do it in text or I'll do it in another video. I might do another video as well for this series of just covering weird experiments I have done. There was a way I have worked out roughly how to make a class in DnDBeyond Homebrew editor using subclasses. It's a bit weird, it's a bit finicky. There's a couple more things I want to experiment with before I publish the video, just to make sure that I've covered all the bases and answered as many questions as I can. But yes. So with that, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for joining. You have all been wonderful, and we will see you all in the next video. Bye.